thank you so much for joining me with this very special interview with the great Gary Wayne. This is one of my favorite scholars to turn to for the subjects we're going to talk about today. You can find his work at Genesis 6, the number 6, Genesis6conspiracy.com. And I have his fantastic book sitting with me right here that he was gracious enough to sign and send my way. It is a volume of research and all kinds of amazing stuff going into ancient times to unpack some of the mysteries of the ancient times that I think are actually very relevant in our current times. And Gary, always so good to have you, man. And I'm very glad to have you featured in this interview because I think we have a lot of important information to cover.
Well, thank you for inviting me to talk about this topic. And I think it's one of those areas where people haven't really scrutinized what's right in front of their faces. And then asked, okay, well, what does that really mean? And where did that come from? And why do they do the things they do? And why do they display the things that they do? Because they're interconnected. So I think this is going to raise some eyebrows and create some curiosity, I think. Yeah, so when we look at the word Pharmakeia, as we want to be able to understand what happened before so we can understand what's happening today. And you have three words that show up in the book of Revelations. And it's in Revelation, throughout Revelations, but particularly underlined in Revelation 18 with an organizational structure that works closely with an end-time global government. It's partly a merchant organization, and it's partly a religious, and it controls the political nature in the first 3.5 years and slightly before of the last 7 in end-time prophecy. And in Revelation 18, it says that Babylon deceives and leads the world astray through sorceries. In the King James Version translation, 5331, 5332, 5333 from the Greek language of Strong's, and it's Pharmakeia, Pharmakous, and Pharmakos. And they're basically the same words, just sort of different combinations like sorcery, sorcerers, things like that. And that is defined as not only magical arts, but also magical spells. So in some English translations, you won't see sorceries, you'll see magical spells. And this goes back to a concept that goes back into ancient history that is embedded into the secret societies like the Rosicrucians and the Freemasons, who created modern science as we understand it today to develop the 7 liberal arts and education away from Catholic oversight from Rome. And education and universities and science today still pays homage to that society, which is the Royal Society. And in 1662, they formed their charter, and they called themselves the last of the sorcerers. And they were developing medicine. So they're a medicine cult and they were a wisdom cult. And that's why you have the snake that is representing both wisdom in mysticism and the representational symbol for mystery schools and for medicine. And it goes back to their ancient gods who were serpent-like figures. So Isis was originally depicted as a serpent, as Osiris, as offspring gods. And the parent gods, many of them were offspring gods as well. And so you see this serpent imagery all over the world for both kings and for gods. But this imagery goes right back in all of the cultures to the same two things, wisdom and medicine. So you get the father of medicine in Greece from a god called Asclepius. And his son is Hippocrates, who all the doctors take the Hippocratic oath to. And his daughter was Hygeia, which is one of the symbols, the bowl of Hygeia with a snake on it, for pharmaceutical associations. Although there's also the mortar and pestle, as we also get that on some of the pharmaceutical swords. But worldwide, it's mostly the bowl of Hygeia in terms of their imagery. And that's like a grail-like cup with the snake imagery on it. And it derives from, taking these medicines or these pharmakeias, which were either things that were created from herbs and things, or they could also be part of a ritual and a magical spell.
but that at the top of that, these guys believe what you're talking about. Whether people watching this believe it or not, these people absolutely do, don't they?
Yeah, and I like to remind people, because I get asked a lot, do you believe a lot of what they say? And my response is that it's not important whether I believe it or not. What's important is that they believe it and what they're doing with that belief.